Little warning everyone, for those who are light sensitive. I can't for the love of me record speed paint without jumping everywhere, so some part might be flashy. Maybe avoid the video entirely, your safety above all. Oh, this is gonna be fun to record! Hello, this is the first video on this channel, so I must explain a little tiny important thing. My native tongue is French. So my English might be all kind of wrong and my pronunciation awkward as possible. Plus I'm sneezing, so my voice is really I will try my best. I already have a French-speaking YouTube channel, but you see, I really love MLP and creation and sharing, so here I am. Moreover, I think learning a language and practicing it is never a bad idea. So yeah, pardon my French. As I said, I'm a big MLP fan. It's a comforting universe for me that I watch to keep bad thought at bay. The brain riot was inevitable. Especially since I see many people doing awesome redesign online, so I wanted to try the same. Here's an extensive video about redesigning Twilight Sparkle to feed my addiction, especially with the state of G5. Or Generation 5 is the sequel to Generation 4. Generation 4 being Friendship is Magic, aka the generation that propelled the universe to cult series status. Needless to say, they had some serious shoes to fill when creating G5. And unfortunately, let's just say that I honestly cannot say that G5 is a good series. I'm going to stop right here those who like G5 or those who put G4 on a pedestal. My reason for crying over G5 are actually quite objective. Or at least I think. G4 is far from perfect, very far indeed. And I wish I was able to love with all my heart this new generation. I sincerely envy those who are able to do so and have a great time with the truly good quality that this new generation possesses. I'm not getting into the war between fans of the two generations, especially since, pardon my French again, it's so lame. A series needs to evolve and reinvent itself. And dare I say, it needs to end too. My war, like most of my grievances with the universe I love, is directed at the production, not the artists, and even less the fans. Except for the fans who indeed have extremely toxic behavior towards their universe, but it's their attitude that is a problem, not the universe. I am also not well versed nor aware of any internal struggle that might justify the problems. In truth, I don't even care. I want to enjoy what I enjoy, and this video is not aimed at being a documentary on Hasbro or the creation of MLP. I base my opinion on what I see and hear, which is not reliable as you all know, so I might make mistakes and bad calls. Take all I say with a grain of salt, as I will try to make my point as clear and devoid of judgment as possible. Everyone has a right to love something without having to justify themselves. So let's not start a war in the comment between G5 and G4, please. Thank you. I'm part of the people who loves the original concept of a sequel to G4 set far away in the future, and saw the movie which was the best depiction of it. But if there's one thing I loved above all about G5, it's the transition to 3D. As brief as it was, and for the better, because in Make Your Mark the 3D is 2000s Barbie level of bad. Anyway, the 3D aspect is the reason why I'm talking so much about G5 here. I have a degree in 3D animation, which does not give me any level of professionalization, mind you, because I never actually worked in a studio, but it does provide me with an interesting insight into the technique and adaptation. Since it's been a long time since I've been able to explore this passion for 3D, I decided to embark on this project of redesigning the Friendship is Magic series as if it was a 3D adaptation. Yes, like they did in the early concept of G5. But why Friendship is Magic and not Tell Your Tale or Make Your Mark? Well, because I wanted to talk about something I love and not spend my time ruining the experience of people who actually like G5. Also, I'm much more familiar and invested in G4 so my opinion will be more informed than for any other generation, even if I don't know everything I need to know about G4. Lastly, we can make a good retrospective critique of G4, while G5, still ongoing, has the room for evolution I hope it will take. Well, what I said is like freaking milk! You see, I'm really slow to produce content, so this video was written long before Hasbro announced they will discontinue G5. So yeah, it will not have the room for evolution, and I'm just devastated for those who love the generation. Yeah, it's not my thing. And I think Tell Your Tale was an awful format, like, just really crappy, and I hated how cheap they went with the French dub in season 2. Even if I don't watch it, it's a disaster of translation and acting, it's awful. But gosh darn it, you deserved better than just a good ending. You deserved a real runtime. I've seen this a lot, but I don't think the problem is G4 fans not giving G5 a chance. Knowing the fans, their level of dedication, and being one of them, I think most critics, except for the crazies, wanted to love this new gen, and instead maybe have misdirected anger. Or, yeah, some can't move on, but let's not talk about them. In truth, I believe it's Hasbro who had the least faith in this generation, or who simply didn't understand how to make a series attractive. Because a good series will bring a new audience. It does not have to rely on what was built before. And with G5, it just didn't happen. I'm sad. Let's share a little love for what was great and hope they won't reboot a successful generation with this attitude. Yeah. Misty was incredible, and to all the artists who brought the new gen to life, either on the show or on social medias, thank you. Your work is awesome, and keep doing it. Ouf to heart. Anyway, let's get back and actually start this challenge, or start explaining the challenge. Gosh, I'm such a blabbermouth. The goal, as I said, is to reimagine Generation 4 for 3D. This includes the designs, but also the technicality of interactions. Grabbing something, for example, might be extremely disturbing in 3D, when in 2D it works very well. We'll also talk about merchandising, because MLP is above all about selling toys for Hasbro, and finally, I'd like to delve into the lore of G4 and maybe correct certain detail with the knowledge from the 9 seasons of the generation. Obviously, inconsistencies were bound to appear between seasons as they weren't planned as a continuous story, but the idea is to stay as faithful as possible to the universe and the original choices, in short, to everything that worked in G4. Even if I'm going to have fun changing some fundamental things, because I personally find that they don't work very well to begin with. But this will only be an opinion, a suggestion of how things could be readapted, and not a claim of, look, this is so much better. I'm literally nobody to make better things than countless artists and people that work in the industry. To do this, I've set myself a few rules. The core of the redesign will be the 3D aspect, which means thinking the series and its style in 3 dimensions. I must stay close to the G4 MLP art style, as G5 did for its designs, but I won't exactly replicate the G5 style, even if it will serve as a basic inspiration. It has some flaws in 3D, notably a rather pronounced same face syndrome that gives ponies baby face, well, I will even say baby human face, and it's a fairly widespread trend in the moment to make everything super cute, which can be a little uncanny. In short, I must give MLP its own identity that will differentiate it from other 3D cartoons for children, and maybe try to bring a little more of the horse in the design. However, and most importantly, I'm not going to make an adaptation for an audience of my age. The target remains the same, which is primarily children, but by making it an all-age series not exclusive to little girls. Boys and adults should be able to watch and enjoy it, as is already the case for G4. Each character must have a unique silhouette. The biggest criticism of G4 in terms of design is that all the characters look alike, mainly due to the technical limitation of the time of the creation. In Tell Your Tales, the 2D series of G5, they addressed this issue and gave each pony unique shapes. It's a shame that they use the graphic style of absolutely all cartoons released from 2015 to now, which means, well, even though they're different from each other, they really look like any interchangeable character in this style. Hence the importance, once again, of finding a unique style for MLP and not a trendy art style. I will go further by saying that I want to avoid the same face syndrome, which is extensively present in Tell Your Tale 2, since the style doesn't really allow for much differences in terms of faces, and also in Make Your Mark. But if I can make a small point about the same face syndrome in 3D, I think it was more of a budget issue. 3D requires quite a bit of preparation, and it's cheaper to duplicate a model and make minor modification than to have to create a new animation skeleton. Even if I think that for the 5 main characters, 6 with Misty, they could have patched a little more the differences. To help me achieve this goal of unique silhouettes and faces, I will associate each character with a horse breed. A horse or a pony breed, that's quite the same thing except for the size. It will help for the silhouette, but it's also really fun to do research on this, so yeah. In this case, each association I will make will be purely opinion-based, totally debatable, and far from perfect. I'll do my best to explain my choices, but I know they won't appeal to everyone and their interpretation of the character. And that's okay. The truth is that we can associate many different breeds with each character. At some point, I just had to make a choice. To deepen the lore and possibilities, I will give each character clothes or equipment pieces that match their personality. This will further justify Rarity's profession and serve as a good character design exercise for me. As for reality, there's little chance that a low-budget 3D animated series will have the opportunity to include outfits other than for exceptional events. But since my opinion isn't meant to convince a producer, we can have fun with it. I will try to make as few changes as possible to what works. For example, the colors of the main 6, their attributes, Cutie mark, etc. Except in unique cases where I'd like to propose an alternative. I will also explain why these choices work very well as they are. Thus, the term redesign is a bit misleading, as I probably won't change the design that much. Well, I say that now, but yeah, I think I will change it quite a lot for the other main 6. Each unicorn will have a unique horn pattern, as in G5. But I'll go further. They will also have a unique form of magic, meaning a visual way of displaying their magic. In G4, each unicorn has a specific magic color. Here, in addition, the form will be unique. For example, flame, liquid, explosive, sparkle. So many possibilities. Each Pegasus will also have wings that are unique to them, again, like in G5. But I will also try to give each Pegasus a bird whose wing shape will inspire their own. And I will try to avoid birds of prey, which I'll reserve for griffins and hippogriffs. Possibly, I will imagine the specific magic of Earth Pony, another great idea of G5, and try to design their hoofs as I would design the unicorn's horns. Some species that don't have cutie marks will have cutie marks. I'm referring to all equids in particular. This obviously includes zebras that already have cutie marks, but also donkeys. And it's where I really don't understand why donkeys don't have cutie marks they can breed with horses. Mules, onagers, hemions, as well as magical species inspired by or partly equine, such as hippogriffs, hippocampi, aka sea ponies, kelpies, or even a bit more distant, the kirins, which are at the end nothing more than the Chinese term for unicorn. On the other hand, griffins, which are part lions and part eagles, changelings, primarily inspired by insects, yaks, cows, goats, dragons, buffaloes, deer, etc., will not have cutie marks. You get the idea. And I think these are all my rules. We can move on to the redesign of the first of the main 6 to appear, Twilight Sparkle. Twilight is my favorite character, or at least the one who taught me the most about myself. Redesigning her was a pleasure because she's the character about whom I had the most in-depth opinions. Let's start by discussing what works incredibly well in her design, beginning with her colors. Purple is a color heavy with meaning. Strongly associated with magic, enchantment, and the night sky, it already represents the central idea of this character's talent. Furthermore, purple, more specifically royal purple, is the color of royalty. It worked better in my French script because royal purple is called pourpre. Indeed, in Roman times, the only way to obtain purple was by harvesting thousands of small mollusks, making the dye excessively expensive and reserved for the elite, even deities. For Twilight, purple thus connotes her attachment to magic and mystery, as well as to the high society she belongs to. Living in Canterlot, having had a princess as a babysitter, a princess as a mentor, and a brother who is captain of the royal guard, as well as to the royalty which she will join by becoming a princess herself. Purple is also the combination of red and or pink and blue. Day can be associated with red and night with blue. Her name is Twilight. Beyond the descriptive aspect, it's also the idea that she unites day and night, sun and moon, Celestia and Luna, separated for 1000 years now. She is the Twilight, the harmony between the day and night. Needless to say, I'm not going to change her purple. Her colors, as well as those of her mane, have also been used for the logo, so even if it works well, I won't add the yellow except for the rainbowified version, which we're far from currently because I'm really not going to make every variation of the character in one vid. Also, I find her palette perfectly balanced and why deprive people of beef like Twilight? I will also try not to desaturate any color. For me, these bright and cheerful colors are part of MLP's identity. Desaturating them will give a more adult feel that strays from my target audience, especially since my shapes are already really less chibi-like, which already gives a more mature impression. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I will try to be a faithful dog and not a kitty cat. For her horse breed of inspiration, I choose the purebred Arabian horse. I may be the only one to see a connection between Twilight and magic and the Arabian Nights, but I've always had this big idea of Twilight with an oriental profile, and given all the fan arts of Twilight with dark skin colors and more of an oriental profile, I don't think I'm going too far in saying that I'm not alone in this headcanon, which I'm really happy about. However, that's not really why I choose the Arabian horse. First of all, it's a noble horse breed, or at least one that has this worldwide reputation of being a noble horse. It's the favorite breed of many people, and there's almost a mystical aura around the title of purebred Arabian. Time to low drop a little. Ahem. Raised in harsh desert climates, the breed has developed exceptional endurance for prolonged efforts thanks to its selection as a warhorse. A warhorse! Oh, that will be good for shining armor. Also very close to human, it can represent the unbreakable bond between the animal and the rider. Their country of origin has made them codependent on humans. The Arabian horse needs the friendship of its owner. Well, a horse dependent on friendship. It's also a versatile horse capable of many tasks and renowned for its intelligence. Times 2. Some lineages of Arabian horses are said to descend from... Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm already butchering the English language, now I'm butchering the Arabian language. From the El Hamsa, the 5 mares of the Prophet of Islam. Well, a horse breed linked to the divine? If that's not an argument for a future icon. Another interesting detail, these 5 mais are also said to have received the imprint of one of the prophet's finger in the lower part of the neck. It's a muscular depression in the neck area, says Wikipedia. Pretty good to put as an Easter egg on a design, but since I've already drawn everything at this point, let's just imagine it's there. Oh, and 5 mais, 5 princesses, counting flowery heart. The coincidence is quite funny, even if I'm not going to make every Alicon an Arabian purebred. The purity of this breed is determined by genealogy, another parallel with royalty, which uses the same technique to justify itself. The breed, whose greatest quality is endurance, is equally acclaimed for its beauty, although the eugenic selection, as with Persian cats, has favored the development of genetic malformations and diseases. I find this amusing for a lineage of pure unicorns from Canterlot's high society. But yeah, let's not get too morbid in this video. It's an ancient breed with 2000 years of history, steeped in mysticism and romanticism, intrinsically linked to the divine and excessively admired worldwide. A story about their creation tells, when God wanted to create horses, he called the south wind, took a handful of it, created the horse, and said, "Your name is Arab. I bind goodness to the hairs of your forelock and riches on your back. I have privileged you among all work animals. I have made you honor your friend. I have lent you the strength to fly without wings." Yeah, it's cute. Found it in a book. Finally, I find that the dark color of the most popular coat, the slender silhouette, the high tail and the curved ears, as well as the small stature, make the Arabian purebred a good visual for Twilight Sparkle, whose strength and size has never been emphasized in the series. Let's finally talk about what I'm drawing. I had already done some preliminary searches by myself to speed up the process. The first step was to think about the most essential part, the face, in 3 dimensions. To signify the Arabian purebred, I accentuated the small upturned nose, a pentagonal face shape, and curved ears. I also curved the horn while trying to keep the roundness to avoid making it threatening. This curve serves to echo the ears and the high tail of purebred as well as their nose. I tried to keep almond-shaped eyes, which I find quite unique in G4. And there's a headcanon in the community that says that extensive use of magic eventually curves the horn. I'm not sure if I'll stay faithful to this headcanon, but it helps give a bit more personality to Twilight as a unicorn. The most difficult part of this turnaround was her bangs, and I think it shows. But I absolutely wanted to avoid the flat bangs that G5 gave us. They look crude, heavy, thick, not very balanced in terms of design. The G4 version has more flow, lightness and flexibility. That's what I wanted to recreate. I think it's important for 3D design to keep that flow, especially if the hair can't really move due to low-budget technical limitation. Speaking of that, when designing in 3D, you don't directly adapt a 2D style. You've probably seen 3D MLP models and found them a bit off and uncanny, even if some are made by really talented artists. For me, this comes from the fact that the G4 style just isn't made for 3D. The profile and front view of the faces have no volumetric coherence. It only works because 2D allows moving the position of the eyes, not the irises, mind you, the entire eyes. And obviously, in a technique where the camera can rotate around the face, this isn't feasible. So we are forced to identify the essential stylistic characteristic and transcribe them as best as possible into this new format. Despite its same face baby syndrome, G5 has wonderfully adapted the G4 style for 3D, in my opinion at least, keeping the big eyes, small muzzle, chibi proportion and wide legs. I'm moving a bit further away from the G4 style, especially with, you'll see, smaller legs, but I hope I've still managed to preserve some of its spirit. Well, it's not for me to judge objectively at this stage. Coming back to the bangs, for me they are essential to who Twilight Sparkle is. We'll come back to this a bit more in the hairstyle section, but they represent the seriousness of the character, her perfectionist and square side. Having such a perfectly straight and well-maintained bang demonstrates an extremely rigorous side. G4 wonderfully succeeded in her design in this regard, and even those of the main six in general, where the hairstyle immediately conveys the pony's personality. Well, I didn't finish all the head positions because it ended up annoying me. Let's move on to the body after this satisfying little turnaround. Once again, I had already done some preliminary tests to speed up the process. Well, I didn't keep the legs very wide, as you can see. I could have, but I choose more fineness. Firstly, because in Tell Your Tale, they allowed themselves to do so. And secondly, because it's a great idea. It will help adding another variable element to diversify the designs, which is really important. Twilight is quite small, slender and angular. And I added fluff to the legs as a reminder of more traditional unicorns. It's also a popular headcanon, more a way of redesigning in the community to draw inspiration for unicorns from medieval representations. To stay true to the spirit of the original series, I'm not going to take too much inspiration from it because it's also something that I think MLP has really popularized, which is the modern image of the cuter and more harmless unicorn. One might think that the unicorn, due to its mythological heritage and influence, especially in Europe, has a certain form of nobility, even violence, which would have been denaturalized, I'm struggling so much with English right now, by merchandising and toy companies. But I think that this smoother, harmless, even positive unicorn doesn't erase the historical unicorn that can still be found in modern works such as Unicorn Wars or Harry Potter 1, at least in spirit, if not in design. Anyway, this new way of envisioning the unicorn creates a new mythology in the manner of Pegasi, which are derived from Pegasus, a character whose name became the species, or the siren of Greek mythology, who went from monstrous bird woman to monstrous fish woman, called mermaid, to fish woman capable of telling a multitude of stories and not stuck in a role of evil seductive temptress. Yes, these pink and gentle unicorns are much less badasses, but I like them and I find them suited to the tone of the series. So for my redesign, I'm going to stay faithful to them and try to sparingly take elements from both old and modern unicorns to pay homage to both cultures. Prescription for those who draw full-on old-school unicorns. This little side rant is not a criticism of those who love the awesome aesthetic of medieval unicorns. I'm rather reflecting on people outside the MLP community who I've heard complain about what became of the unicorn. Yeah, there really are people who gatekeeps unicorns. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. For me, there isn't a better version of the unicorns, simply different reinterpretation, which emphasize different qualities and both have extremely badass design possibilities, which give awesome inspirations. I love seeing old school unicorn design on MLP character. Let's keep doing them and much more. And also, rarity with a beard, supremacy. Anyway, the colors. Since we're in 3D and we paint the models in advance, we can afford patterns on the coat. Notably, I added the gradient found in white Arabian purebreds around the nose, eyes and legs. By choosing specific breeds, and with the help of my friend Ingra, who has all the horse knowledge, I wanted to give the coat real equine characteristics, which apparently means no sinful white underbelly, which are more of a cat pattern, and no fading socks. Stylized certainly, but still inspired by reality. So I chose to add this little pattern. I also gave her white spot, very light purple in reality, on the forehead, which is called the blaze, slightly extended into a stripe in a diamond shape to recall the sparkle in the name and her cutie mark. Apparently, among riders, it is called a star. At least among French riders. The center aligns with the horn as if it was a source of a magic. She also has 3 socks, the markings on the legs. Why 3? Well, according to Ingres, there's a French saying. 1, horse of nothing. 2, horse of a beggar. 3, horse of a king. 4, horse good for slaughter. Yeah, I know. And 0, horse of a hero. So 3 to represent her connection to royalty. We can also see a nice metaphor in it. Each socks represent a princess, Celestia, Luna, and Cadence. And the missing one represents Twilight, who hasn't gotten her wings. We can even imagine that she'll have an additional sock as a princess? Why not? I'll think about it when I do the alicorn design. Her hooves take the magenta of a mane, just like her horn, with a white gradient for the transparent effect of keratin. I added glitter to the hooves because I think it would suit the design of a magical protagonist for little girls, and it could look cool in merchandising. Finally, her magic will manifest as a firework effect with lots of curves, almost like a liquid firework. It's inspired by Howl's Moving Castle at the moment when the shooting stars fall, but also, well, have you ever seen fireworks? They have the same exact shape as Twilight Sparkles. They are sparkles. So yeah, fireworks all the way, but with a stylization that make them less aggressive, which will contrast, for example, with Tempest Magic. Because I really think Tempest Magic should be fireworks too. Next comes the design of the horn. I did several tests, keeping 2 things in mind. I wanted both the shape of the sparkle and that of a magic to appear, so the firework. I arrived at a design that is less enveloping, more engraved looking, but for the level of detail, it does the job. It was important to maintain a certain flow, and after consideration, I chose to go with a design that highlights the base and the tip of the horn rather than the middle. Finally, before moving on the speed paint section of different poses to characterize the character, let's take a side note on the hairstyle. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I consider Twilight's bangs to be crucial. My analysis of the character is that she takes care of her appearance, contrary to the cliché of the intellectual absorbed in their studies, which we've seen with Sideway and Moondancer. Why and how would she take care of her appearance? For me, it comes from her excessively perfectionist OCD side. She doesn't take care of herself to be pretty, but out of perfectionism, compulsion and duty. Her haircut reflects both a certain social distinction, but above all, an unwavering rigor. She couldn't care less about being seen as nice looking, and her routine must be limited to the strictly necessary. I emphasize the term necessary. Twilight won't waste her time, at least at the beginning, on what she considers futile. However, a well-groomed appearance must help her to have a clear head and to appear as serious and studious as she could. This is part of what's expected of a model student. You won't see someone who doesn't take care of their appearance in a prestigious school like Harvard, for example. I think the practical aspect, that is also very important for her, manifests in a cut that will never obstruct her view, hence the sort of bob and the hair pushed back, as well as the lack of pretty little strands of hair on the side of the face. It's annoying! Having been a Twilight type student myself, the ponytail or bun are the most likely hairstyle that come next. Easy to do, not painful for the scalp, or at least for the ponytail. And well, I ended up adding the little strands on the side to balance it out a bit. Even if knowing what autism can do, I doubt canon Twilight would bother with it. But it works better for merchandising Twilight, and I must think about merchandising Twilight. Another aspect of practicality for me is the unchanging aspect of her hairstyle. She never experiments with it, she has a comfort hairstyle, she always does the same one and only changes it for very special occasions like a party or a scientific experiment. It's even possible that she cuts her hair herself, not trusting a hairdresser and their fantasy and wanting things exactly the way she wants them. This would show her perfectionist side again, but it would also say something about the character. She only trusts herself before discovering friendship. Thus, all the haircuts that I've done to experiment are ultimately more fan service than a real intention to change her design. I think her main cut works perfectly well as it is and represents both her perfectionism, the compulsive side, and the good student attitude without falling into the cliché of the nerd who doesn't take care of themselves because they're too absorbed in their passions. Similarly, if we think from a marketing point of view, Twilight is a perfect poster child. Lauren Faust, I don't know how to pronounce her name, and her team really nailed her design, despite their major technical limitation in season 1. Just to test it, I also tried adding the yellow from her rainbowified version, and I've come to the conclusion I suspect I would. While it suits her perfectly, I find it quite necessary. Her design is already balanced. Adding an extra color, especially one so impactful and flashy, slightly unbalances the design. The fact that the different colors are all put on one side seems a little heavy to me, but that might just be because I decided to just follow what was already there. Maybe the yellow should have been placed elsewhere. Where I think I have a more tangible objection is in the way the yellow attracts attention, stealing the show in a way. Our gaze is directed toward her hair rather than her face, which is unfortunate since it's the face that will convey emotions. With such a strong yellow on such a dark background, the rest of the palette appears duller and desaturated, which harms the overall design. Finally, thematically, the yellow doesn't add much more. Yes, we might be closer to the colors of a Twilight, but Twilight's palette is already a dusk, stylized certainly, but still. Lastly, and since this remains one of my points, in terms of merchandising, I don't think adding the yellow is the best idea. If we look at the toys, it's already a lot that they put more than 2 colors in the brushables. For example, the brushables of Twilight never get her main right. Her main midnight blue simply gets yeeted most of the time to keep only the purple and magenta. The colors are also added in successive stripes and follow neither the ratio nor the pattern of the canonical implementation. Adding yellow, yeah, they could, but let's make good toys and keep it simple, but just make them good. Yeah, I mean, they're not even able to put cutie marks on both sides, so... Oh, by the way, cutie marks are definitely going back on both sides. That's one thing I really hated in G5. I know it's so stupid, but I felt it was so lame and merchandising pleasing to just put a cutie mark on one side, especially since in 3D it's not a problem to put them on both sides, and it's such a cool identifying features that tells a lot about the personality. I've heard it was a throwback to the old gen, but I really felt like it was just more merchandise accurate, and I just saw that side when I saw this decision. Which leads me to a little bonus rule. If I will take in consideration merchandising. I will never limit myself because of merchandising in these designs. It's kind of an afterthought, like I will try to think about it, but I won't deprive myself of cool ideas because it would be a pain to do in merchandising. But there you have it. I think the yellow will make its appearance for the rainbowified version because it shows an interesting power-up. I mean, the palette really works. The classic version, though, will remain simple, which will make the occasion where the yellow will appear very special indeed. As you see, I moved on drawing positions. I've done several, too many even, with the aim of capturing the body's volumes. And yeah, sometimes I messed up a bit, and you'll see in the way I'm applying color. Sometimes I made mistakes on my own design. But since I'm too lazy to go back and fix it, it will stay that way. The goal with drawing all these different positions was also to work the attitude and flexibility of the model. Because yeah, if equine action will work perfectly fine, MLP also has a lot of anthropomorphism, and these actions really need to be thought through. Yeah, make your mark with the bending hoofs to hold the cup. That's not it, chief. Yeah, no, the bending hoofs I cannot. For Twilight, it will be really simple. She has a magic, she can hold objects like this, but it will be interesting to think about all of that with AJ. Well, while I will let the speed paint run, I'm going to address an important point for me. Why, oh why didn't I give Twilight glasses? Almost all the redesign I see give her some. And even the show with Sight Y. Plus, they suit her incredibly well, like she's so cute with them. So, why? I thought about it. At first, I wanted to give her some. And then I asked myself, why Twilight? Well, it's not to be inclusive, because if I want to be inclusive, I can choose any of the main 6. Why do I associate glasses specifically with Twilight? The easiest answer is Equestria Girl, but why did Equestria Girl put glasses on Twilight? Well, to create a difference between Sight Y and Twilight. But why with glasses? Well, it has nothing to do with inclusivity, it's just because she's a nerd. And nerds in fiction wear glasses. Twilight studies, so obviously she must have ruined her eyesight on her books. Except, I don't think it happened like this in reality. Yes, when she's older, she surely have them, but probably being in her 20s, it's not systematic. I feel like giving Twilight glasses is kind of a shortcut that reinforces the idea of someone being intelligent. But I don't really like what that implies. Like, you wear glasses because you're smart, as if being smart means you didn't take care of your eyes, or that you ruined your vision by reading small prints, or that you have a social status that allows you to afford and take care of glasses. Sure, it's effective in terms of character design, but it also reinforces a cliché that, while not harmful enough to start a witch hunt over, doesn't add anything meaningful to the character narratively. We'll come back to that. But MLP being a kids show first and foremost, and glasses being something every child will encounter either through their own poor eyesight or through a classmate who wears them, I think it would be smart to treat glasses not just as a fashion accessory or a character design shorthand, but as an element that can actually communicate something, send a message, in a way that's a bit more realistic and meaningful than just assigning them to the shy nerdy type. Moreover, and this is more of a little side rant, MLP is not at its first attempt in terms of glasses for intelligent people or for a specific kind of intelligent people. Sight Y, Sunburst, Moondancer, and you see how the three all represent the trope of intelligent people who don't really take care of themselves, while other intelligent and wise characters like Star's World or Celestia don't have them. I'm also thinking about the comics, which is not really important because not many people read the comics anyway. But in the comics, there is a mirror universe where Muffin is renamed Wise Muffin and wear glasses. But what infuriates me is that she doesn't have her strabism. Like her strabism is the sign of her silliness, which is exactly what people were mad against, specifically with the character of Muffin. So yeah, that's so stupid. Anyway, can't glasses help with strabism? At least a little? I don't know, I don't wear them, but yeah. Let's get back on track. I find it quite intelligent that Twilight doesn't have glasses in the original version, even if it's for all the wrong reasons, like making an appealing main character. I will stay true to this fact because there is another character who canonically wears glasses from the beginning of the series, albeit periodically, and that's Rarity. I think it's really important to add inclusion, especially for problems so common for children. I'm mad none of them are wearing glasses constantly. Having a main six who wear glasses is an excellent idea, but if I had to choose, I'd prefer it to be Rarity and not Twilight. I'll talk more about it during her own redesign, about how glasses for her would be an interesting narrative point that would convey excellent messages for all young people who wear them. Rarity could really understand what these children go through and be an excellent role model, I think. If we look at Twilight's case, however, from a narrative standpoint, what could glasses really bring in the picture? Well, every idea can be really well executed, but I have the feeling it would not bring much. She just would love them. She would be comfortable displaying her intellectual style with them. There would be no tension, no rejection of a condition, no miscommunication, no real learning opportunity, if you see what I mean. And as for the sad bullying side of things, why would young Twilight care? She's already alone. She already has no friends. And if, with the subtlety MLP has shown before, we make, for example, an episode centered around Twilight being bullied for having glasses, like, it would minimize so much of the character, because no, she's not alone because she was left alone by the others. She's left alone because she chose to be alone. She didn't value friendship. That's the whole point of the show. So she would be the worst character to convey a form of exclusion based on something you have no say in the matter. I just can't see Twilight embodying issues that young people like her might encounter, and she would only be for them yet another representation of you wear glasses so you're intelligent. The only thing she could represent is the panic of having them broken, but we already have Velma and Scooby-Doo for that. I should specify that including representation doesn't necessarily mean addressing the subject in depth. Sometimes it helps just to see someone living with it as if it was nothing. But in the case of a main character in an episodic series that talks about friendship problems and social difficulties for children, it would be really unfortunate not to use it to convey positivity for the people concerned by the issue, or the people who might misjudge others that wear glasses, for example, and if possible, inspired everyone to love themselves for who they are, to find themselves beautiful and to be who they want to be with the things they can change about themselves. I think it just, it would fit in the narrative of MLP, what it's trying to convey. I was thinking about a very cute episode that might be in the show concerning glasses. Like, there is a foal that have to wear glasses and is really struggling with the concept. And Twilight tries to cheer them up by talking about how much they wanted to have glasses when they were little and what she tried to get them. And the foal is like, but I don't have a choice. I'm forced to have them. And then Rarity can tell her side of the story and talk about how it was difficult for her and really connect with the foal to help them accept their glasses. And this could be such a cute Rarity Twilight episodes where Twilight learn how to be more empathic, and we would see Rarity as really strong, and at the end Twilight's enthusiasm might finally rub off on the foal, and you would think glasses are just like the coolest thing ever. It could really be a very heartwarming episode if executed well. As usual, I'm going off on tangents, so let's focus on the next step, clothing. My first idea was obviously the school uniform. Shirts, ties, so many elements associated with intellectuality. I also quickly thought about a logo for the magic school run by Celestia, drawing inspiration from the monarch design. I think Twilight would be very proud to have been a part of it and would display it openly, given that studies are such an essential part of her life, especially in the earlier seasons, which is what I'm designing. I tried a few variations, a skirt, a vest, but I admit I wasn't very convinced by the idea of a skirt, which seems almost too human, so I quickly removed it. For colors, blue and purple are featured prominently. The idea being to find what we call a classic palette for Twilight. Like in the Wings series, we start with a single color to define each character. Blue for Bloom, orange for Stella, pink for Flora. It's only once this palette is well established in people's mind that we can start to add variation, secondary color, tertiary colors, etc. This reinforces the idea of the character's evolution. The last two outfits on this board, can I say a board? Is that the right word? Anyway, this compilation of experimentations are the most important. Firstly, for the signification of the shirt tie concept, where I realized we didn't need all the elements to convey the essence of the design. Then I imagined a satchel with a saddle. If saddles are very useless in MLP, they make sense for Twilight, who carries a baby dragon with her, a baby dragon who does not have wings by this point. By the way, don't worry, Spike won't be forgotten, but he'll have his own video. A satchel is an extremely practical aspect for Twilight, who must be the type to carry not useless things like Rarity, but still too many things with limited utility. On the second board, I focused on capes and the satchel concept again. Capes are a fairly logical continuation for Twilight and will allow me to address the type of clothing I imagine her wearing. For Twilight, clothes must be functional, easy to put on, but also with a certain elegance that would highlight her studious aspect. We're between Rarity, who dresses to impress, and Applejack, who will probably only have something to carry her tools. To this, we add the constraint of practicality. Clothes that don't hinder movement and don't take time to put on. The cape, in addition to being linked to magic, particularly in the lore of MLP, combines a practical aspect with its pocket and protection against the elements. The third board is a synthesis board in which I selected the research that seemed the most interesting to me. Let's review them. First proposal, standard Twilight. Very simple, doesn't disrupt or weigh down the design. It's just an accessory, a tie knot, which reinforces the intellectual aesthetic. It's the simplification of the shirt and an ideal accessory for merchandising. The next two are my favorite cape variation, with, in the first one, a satchel embroidered with constellation to signify a passion for astronomy. We find the square or diamond pattern present on her tie repeated here, and star or sparkle motifs. Below, I thought about the concept of travel and adventures that are reoccurring in MLP. Appropriate outfits with and without cape that would allow Twilight to bring what she thinks she needs, prepared as she is. The second design is inspired for the color by a piece of armor, an aesthetic I find very interesting for Twilight given her connection to the army. Once again, her brother influences her taste quite a bit, and his name is freaking Shining Armor. Of all of them, Twilight is the one who must best understand the usefulness of an armor. Finally, the last one is simply the entire shirt. Not much to say. The last board is more of a bonus. It's not very practical outfit, so it's a little further away for my rules, but I just wanted to have a little fun with dressing Twilight. And I loved some of them really much, so I'll still use some of them in the next part, which will be a more detailed rendering of my favorite outfits. Because why do less when I can do more? This video is not long enough. That said, immediately after starting, I had a new idea. A stroke of genius. The watch. So, I thought, what if Twilight had a practical accessory, a magical multifunctional tool that would allow her to indulge in her passions? After some research, I came across this clock, the Prague astronomical clock, which isn't magical, but honestly, at this point, human intelligence seems to me like it. It's a 600-year-old device displaying the time as well as information related to the universe, including the position of the sun and moon in the sky, zodiac constellations, the brightest planets, and cyclical information such as the duration of day and night, moon phases, eclipse dates, tide times, solar times, sidereal time, solstice dates, a sky map, and Wikipedia says, etc. In short, it's the Swiss Army knife of clocks. For Twilight's watch, let's add to that a miniature planetarium, a kind of sky map that, when activated by magic, projects stars around Twilight. We can also imagine it containing a miniature map of Equestria, as well as a compass. While I'm roughly designing the dial of this watch, let's talk about the potential of this object in the show. Being an astronomer's Swiss Army knife, it could prove useful during the adventures, but I was especially thinking about the amulet given by Celestia and Luna in Season 9, which will allow Twilight to replace them in the task of raising and setting up the sun. I think it's the perfect object to be imbued with the power of the alicorns and represents Twilight's new role. It would be so satisfying to see this watch, present from the beginning, become an artifact of such importance. Moreover, it won't come from nowhere, so win-win. The dial is in Twilight's color, and my great pride, the hands representing the sun and moon are respectively Celestia's cutie mark and, as it was made before Nightmare Moon's liberation, the moon has its spot forming the Mariner Moon. I tried to keep it simple, given that we'll see it quite small. Finally, for the bracelet, I won't extend my commentary since I did what I could, but I'm not exactly satisfied with my design. In itself, it's very simple, it just needs to be a nice leather bracelet that doesn't draw too much attention compared to the dial. I imagine nonetheless that the leather is finely crafted, Twilight being a rich kid after all. But just let's not talk about where the leather comes from. Because, yeah, it's weird when you think about it. No, we'll say it came from a magical tree. Yeah, like rubber. Yeah, I've got the same dilemma with cows. Like, what the hell, MLP? Cows are sentient talking beings, but depicted as limited and living in farms where they are milked? What is that kinky weird shit? They corrected the hamburger, making them hay burger, but they still milk cows and treat them like cattle? I'm to the point of thinking about cows having a magical ability to create vegetal milk with their hoof, so we can still play with the cliché of milk came from cow and make cow a real sentient species, but without the weirdness. And it's not like we can really avoid the conversation because Pinkie Pie is represented a lot with cake and cream. Oh god, what have we done? It's not important anyway. Let's go back to the rendering of my favorite outfits. I'll go quickly over the first, it's Twilight with a shirt, she's a smarty pants. The second is an adventure outfit or for long journeys. I paid attention to the detail of the bag and added some small constellations, Libra for a rigorous and upright side, and the unicorn, because I mean, what other constellation? For the third outfit, I wanted to play with the idea of the cape and the magician, since it's an action pose, to see a bit what the clothes would look like in this kind of magical maelstrom. Then for the last two outfits, I wanted to do something a bit more fancy and pretty, notably by using one of the Magic Academia outfits and inventing another more ceremonial for the last. I don't think it would be the outfit for the Grand Galloping Gala, which I intend to do one of these days when I have my main 7, but it was fun anyway and I really needed some glitter at this point of the video. So there you have it, my rendering board that concludes the concept art for Twilight in an alternative 3D show in my own style. It's far from perfect since I'm limited with my own drawing skill, but I hope the video still inspired you or made you dream a little or something like this. But there's still some video left. Why, you ask me? Because I'm extra and, well, I didn't talk enough about toys, so let's go. NLP is above all about toys. Now, as I said, the toys in question have issues, but especially those of G4, which sadly lack inspiration in my opinion. Honestly, what might be my favorite thing about G5 is the creativity in the toys. There's something for everyone. Brushables, action figures, sets, accessories, variety in format offered, and honestly, I think they are rather pretty when those of G4 are, for lack of better word, really stagnant? Like, they don't really open my imagination. When I saw them, they are all in the same pose and not posable. They all have this same expression, and the biggest sin for me, they are not accurate. So I wanted to try to make some mock-ups to show what G4 toys could look like with G5. I did it as a photo montage and I'm very bad at it compared to the rest, so it's quite ugly. But I think it will be enough to show what the concept might be. 3 toy category interested me in particular. Let's begin with the large brushable figures, really made to be styled, articulated, with possibility of illumination of voice, like the gift every kid wants for Christmas and every parent regrets buying. The button would be on the Cutie mark and would activate a light in the horn and possibly a catchphrase or something like this. The hoof and horn will be in a glittery, transparent plastic to add a bit of magic. I really messed up the face, but let's move on. This Twilight would be sold with some accessories. Her collar, tie and watch to start with, in plastic, easy to clip on. A crappy brush, obviously, because every brushable had them. I added extra articulation in the front leg. On a large figure, I think they would have their place. The back legs won't have them though, which will facilitate the construction of the toy. Under the hooves, there will be a hole, allowing to attach accessories and make it look like the pony is holding them. For this purpose, I also imagine a piece of plastic in the shape of magic, in the glittery pink plastic, that could be slipped onto the horn, also provided with a hole that would allow holding objects too. I really don't understand why this hasn't been done, especially on large figures. The small ones Yeah, okay, it would be quite unbalanced, especially since Tifo's horns are unlikely to hold anything. Sorry for the size shaming. But I think little me would have loved playing with a unicorn who can actually do magic. Finally, to complete this brushable Twilight box, I added a book and a telescope, but I think we could also add spike and a saddle and even a cape. But that should do it for this first toy mockup. The next concept that piqued my interest would be the action figure format. Smaller, it would be the kind sold with large plastic structures like palaces. They can be made as brushable, like Hasbro has almost always done, but honestly, I really love what they done with the G5 action figures with plastic accurate hairstyles. I must say that personally, I never cared about styling unbrushable plastic hair and always ended up cutting it and consequently finding my toys quite ugly. I'm glad they offered something else for children like me who really wanted to have an accurate version of the character and not what they did to them. But the G5's models are, well, not perfect. However, I found this Chinese version, I think, and these Japanese ones, and they are a billion times more expressive and cute, so I combined all of these ideas to make an articulated version of Twilight, all cute with plastic hair. Then I had fun imagining what it would be like if we could change the hairstyle, like in Playmobil's figures. And to go with that, I added accessories, watch, color, magic, little stars and bows to style the mane and tail, test tubes, book, quill. The idea is that each box will contain accessories for the respective activities of the pony in question, science, magic and reading for Twilight, in the manner of these G5 boxes that makes me really want to be a child and play with them. And finally, I would have loved to make a box corresponding to the line that I'm going to call Polly Pockets, since it's really the principle, with tiny figurines that fit into a portable box representing an environment from the show. I didn't do it because it requires a lot more environment design and photomontage techniques, and I've already spent 24 hours drawing all of this, so that's enough for today. But can you imagine a little Twilight to carry around with a library? Ah, adorable! Well, here we are at the end of this video. It took a very long time to make, especially when I decided to do an English version, but I'm still quite satisfied to have taken my crazy idea this far. The good thing is, with the next video, I won't have to re-explain all my thought process and will be able to move a little faster on each step. Next time, I won't do two different versions. I think I will combine the English and the French version with voiceover, though it won't be an AI-generated voiceover because they are so bad. So, yeah. And speaking of what to do next time, what do you want to see in the next video? To answer this question, under the video there's a pinned comment listing the rest of the main 6 and Spike in response, and you just have to like the one you want to see in the next video. With that said, I really hope you enjoyed it. I really worked hard. I'm sorry, really, for my bad English. I know the pronunciation is not there and the writing either. But yeah, I'm going back to my lair now and play with my ponies. Oh, and shameless plug here. I do commissions. If you're interested in your OCs in my style or any other thing, really I'm versatile, you can PM me on my Instagram at littlecuillèreoffiction, and for the pricing, I try to work with your budget and your wants instead of fixing prices. So yeah, anyway, bye bye!